Well, it's absolutely normal, I have to say, that the market would be surprised by what happens. Of course, it was unexpected. Obviously, it's difficult to understand why a lot of smart money was betting on Remain when the result is obviously and quite substantially in favor of Brexit. So I am not surprised at all by the hectic market this morning. I think it's a normal reaction, and I think we should not, panic, certainly not, and have full confidence in the central banks, including, of course, not only Bank of England, which is up to the difficulty, but also all the other major central banks to cooperate in order to, I would say, face up with the challenges. So I have no short-term anxiety.
If you were still head of the ECB, or for that matter, any central bank, would you press to have activation of swap lines or a blanket of safety from central banks around the world come together today, or would you wait until next week?
No, if need be, if there is a real liquidity problem which would be confirmed at, I would say, the European and global level, of course the central banks have all the weaponry which is necessary to cope with it, as they have demonstrated in the past, and they can take decisions extremely rapidly and swiftly and boldly if necessary. So I don't think that we have to fear a liquidity problem which would not be, again, taken into account very seriously and professionally by the central banks. The major problem we have now are more medium long term, both, I would say, in terms of real economy behavior in the UK, in the rest of the world, in Europe, and also, of course, the political problem, which is very big, gigantic in the UK, gigantic not only because the Prime Minister leaves, but also because Scotland might leave too. And this is something which is totally dramatic in my understanding. And of course we have the repercussion on continental Europe, which is not negligible.
So, Mr. Trichet, what do you think is going through the minds of central bankers around the world now? The obvious is, of course, Mark Carney and Mr. Draghi, but actually it's Governor Kuroda and it's Thomas Jordan of the SNB that probably have the toughest job today. I'm
not sure I understand exactly the question. If the question is how will work the cooperation between central banks?
No, the question, Mr. Trichet, is if you have to defend yen and if you have to defend the Swiss franc, how would you go about it today?
Well, first of all, it's not my responsibility, obviously. As far as the Swiss franc is concerned, you could see that the Bank of Switzerland has already intervened, and I have confidence in their capacity to do what is necessary. As regards the yen is part of the so-called, I would say, core currencies of the world, and I would expect that there is appropriate discussion at the level of the major central banks of the world in order to have some kind of coordinated move, if necessary. Not, erratic individual move, but coordinated move, as we did after the tsunami. After the last tsunami, I was myself president of the European Central Bank, and we had a consultation at the level of the major currencies, the major floating currencies, the core of the international monetary system, and we had a message for the market. So I would recommend that if need be. I don't think that the need is there, and we have to let the dust settle down a little bit.
What is your biggest concern apart from monetary policy? Can we put the genie back in the box? We had Donald Trump arriving. Do you worry that this is an implosion of the EU?
Well, first of all, you might remember the UK was not one of the founding fathers of the European Union. The UK hesitated a lot before entering. The UK entered only because it thought that its own interests were at stake. So we are not in the same universe, I would say, from the, cultural standpoint in the UK and in the rest of the European Union. So we will see what happens. I take it that the European Union, with these 27 countries now, has a lot of historical responsibility. The historical endeavor is of extreme importance. It started 66 years ago. A lot of reason why it started, namely to have a big domestic market, to emulate the United States of America on the economic standpoint is even more compelling today because you have China, you have India, you have all the emerging world, and so it seems to me that the 27 will confirm their own, interest, which is to remain united. So we will see what happens. There are, of course, a lot of challenges, enormous challenges, but again, the UK is really a special case. The UK was not, again, on the same league as the other because, again, history is at stake. So we have to respect what the UK people had decided. That's absolutely clear. But again, it does not represent, in my opinion, the average of the other countries in the European Union. And I'm confident personally that the European Union will go on, including, of course, the euro area, but I mean the 27 will go on.
All right.